Are you dreaming of buying a piece of land, a vacation home, a lake house, maybe a cabin in the woods? Your dream might not be as far off as you think. Guess what? I just did this, and I'm going to share some details on how you can make it happen for you too. Let's dive in. You're listening to the Girl, Get Your Face Off a Bus Bench podcast, where we invite you to check your ego at the app, grab a cup of coffee, and get ready to dive into all things real estate marketing, social media, friendship, hardship, love, money mindset, and all the things that celebrate you as a badass boss babe.
We're here to encourage you, show up for you, give you a loving kick in the pants when you need it most, and be your soft place to land on the hardest of days. So pull up a seat at our table and get ready to be inspired and start living your best life by design.
Welcome to the Girl, Get Your Face Off a Bus Bench podcast. We are so excited you're here.
Okay, girls, let's dive in. Hey, Kristi, how are you today?
I'm pretty good, Beth. How are you?
I'm great.
Yeah,
I'm great. The sun is shining, the snow is melting. So we're recording this podcast episode just shortly after kind of our only big dumping of snow here in Minnesota.
That late snow that none of us wanted.
That one, when my husband was out of town and nobody plowed the driveway. That one, yeah. But it's melting and the sun is out, so it's a really great day. And we have barbacoa cooking in the crock pot, so we have tacos later. Like, I feel like life's pretty good right today.
Life is pretty good.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, and so when this podcast comes out, we are at the beginning of lake, summer, all things awesome in Minnesota season.
Everything that all of us are waiting for. You know it, right?
Yeah.
We're all so excited for that season. It's like what we live for in Minnesota, in any cold weather state, really.
Right. And so we're going to talk all about what does it look like to buy a cabin or a lake home or an investment property up north. It's so completely different than just buying a 2-bedroom, 3-bath rental down the block from where you live in your current city. It's a completely different ball of wax, and people use them for so many different things. So we're going to kind of like myth bust here.
Yeah. And just a little news flash here is Ryan and I just purchased our, I guess, land, but with the intention of this ourselves. So very new to this and very excited, but it can
so
be done.
Exciting.
Yeah. I think it's a big dream for a lot of us.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And I think many times it seems out of touch.
It does. It felt very out of touch for me. So I'm super pumped for this.
Yeah.
Yeah.
It's really cool. So yeah, we're going to dive into all things. So let's talk about like different types. So Kristi, talk about like what you guys are planning on doing with your land.
So I feel like ours is probably one of the more less common ways of doing it, Beth, but you can correct me if I'm wrong here. So we are North Shore people. We're obsessed with the North Shore. We've talked about that on the podcast here. And we purchased land that we will actually be building on in an area that's a little challenging to build.
Yeah.
So that's what we decided to do. And the reasons for us were because it's just the inventory up there is nothing.
Right.
Or it's a gazillion dollars. And we wanted to be able to put a place that we could actually rent out on our land in addition to a place for us to make our own and maybe rent out too.
So I think that's so smart is that then you could technically have 2 rental properties if you're not up there and you want to rent out the one, your cabin, your little cottage, but then you can always have a rental property, or you can have another family up there with you or friends or whoever. Maybe when Kaya gets older, she's going to want to stay in her own cottage. I mean, you have flexibility with the property and you're designing that with that in mind.
We are.
That it's going to eventually pay for itself and then create passive income for you guys.
That is the goal.
Yeah.
That is the goal.
All while enjoying your happy place.
Our happy place, yeah.
Because, like you've talked about when you go up there, because it's such a hot spot right now, the hotels in town are total dives and they don't have to fix them up because they're still sold out all year round.
Yeah, they're sold out and they're really expensive. So what's going on up there is really exciting. A lot of people just like Ryan and I are doing a similar thing. People that genuinely love that part of our state. It's very unique. And so a lot of nature lovers, like real people that are interested in like the hiking and the Gunflint Trail and like that really northern part of the state. So it's pretty cool.
Well, and then you have Lake Superior up there too. So if anyone's
which we're right
listening to
across the street from, dreaming. I still like pinch me. I can't even believe it's real.
So if you're listening to this podcast from somewhere else in the world or the country, Lake Superior is so big it looks like the ocean.
So Lake Superior is the largest freshwater lake. We call it the Saltless Sea. It is technically an inland sea,
is it
Ryan.
The largest in the country? Freshwater in the country or in Minnesota? In the world?
It's the largest in the world. And I think this is where it gets gray, but we call it a saltless sea. It's technically an inland sea. So cool. It's really cool, yeah. And so the place that we have, and then very intentional about where we bought the land, right, is very convenient to town and right across the street from the beach.
Well, and you guys, you love the area because of the outdoor lifestyle and it has water, but then it also has like great food and a great coffee shop and like all the things. So you can have like a full lifestyle and you can do it all year round too.
It's so exciting. It's really great. And we're connected to the Gunflint Trail, which shoots you up a whole nother part of Minnesota. It's just, for us, really cool. It's like really, like you said, like blending that, like what we love with then being able to hopefully monetize it.
I love it. Okay. So I met with some clients recently, some past clients, and they said, we'd love to schedule some time with you to come over and talk about buying some land also. And so I met with them and I'm like, okay, like, let's talk about like what this dream piece of land could look like. And like, what are you going to use it for? And they said the whole goal with it. And they specifically said, we want to create passive income, but we don't want to have just a boring rental property in the cities, when there's nothing wrong with that. They just are trying to be really intentional about it. So they want a property like within a 2-hour drive of where they live here in the Twin Cities. They want a really big piece of land. And if it has some sort of river, creek, lake near it or on the land, they love that idea. And they are going to build themselves a cabin and then they're going to do like 4 or 5 cottages on it. But then in the summer, they're basically going to move up there. They have jobs that as long as they can get Wi-Fi, they can do their jobs from up there. They're going to create some like toughness in their kids and have their kids just like run the land and live their best lives. And they are also going to use it as a way to build generational wealth because they can put their kids on payroll, set up an S Corp, put their kids on payroll and pay their kids. And then now they're funding their kids' 401ks or investment stuff.
Yeah, I love this.
And I'm like, it's so cool. But also they're a super outdoorsy family. They want to be one with nature. And like the wife said, she goes, I can just imagine us in the summer when we have full capacity with, all of our cabins rented. She's like, I'm going to be the person that says, okay, s'mores by the fire at 8:00. Show up if you want, don't show up if you want, community barbecue if you want to do that. A lot of activities, like bring your 4-wheelers up here and 4-wheel the land. And so they have a whole vision about what they want their property to look like. And so now we're in that beginning stages of finding the right piece of land.
I love that so much. It's exciting. And let's just start with here. I can't wait till I can put Kai on payroll. It's not yet. My accountant says not yet. I can't wait for that day. But that's really a similar situation to what we're going through is this vision of what we would want it to look like and feel like, which feel is so, so important. And then, okay, so how do we make this work? And how do you find that right piece of land right when it comes up and like actually make it happen? And for us, the location was so specific. It sounds like they have a little more flexibility. So like being ready to jump to pounce on that when it came available.
Yeah. Well, and I've talked about it on the podcast before. I have another client that during COVID, they said, they're dual income, no kids. They're like, we want a lake home. They're like, this is something that we've dreamt about for years. Like we're finally in this financial position where we can do it. And we have jobs where we can work from anywhere. And so I went to their house. The 3 of us loaded up in a car and like went on whole entire day long treks looking at land. and properties and cabins.
Fun. That
It was
sounds
fun
so
because
fun.
I'm like, they're people that I adore. I've known them for years and years. And so the wife said, she goes, Beth, I know this feels like a total unicorn, but I would love to have a swimming pool. And I'm like, what? I'm like, you want a cabin on a lake with a swimming pool? I'm like, you're asking me for an absolute unicorn. She goes, I know. I'm just planting the seed. If we find a house with a pool, I'm pretty much going to buy it.
That's awesome.
And so they said they want a good fishing lake, but they didn't yet necessarily need to go swimming lake because they don't like to swim in a lake. They like to swim in a pool. And guess what we found? Like an old resort that had closed down, and the owner had parceled off a few parts of it already, but it still has like 4 acres, and it has a gorgeous year-round house with a gigantic garage, a heated swimming pool.
Stop it.
Yeah, because it was a resort.
That's so cool.
And then it has a big outbuilding and then 2 extra cottages.
Oh my gosh.
So now when they have family come up, there's plenty of room in their house for a whole bunch of people.
Yeah.
But now everybody gets their own little cottage space, and they have a heated pool. And then they can work up there all summer long. They just
Ryan,
move up there.
Can we add a heated pool to ours, maybe?
I mean, but then they easily could rent out their extra little cottages and make money.
Yeah.
They don't want to. They just have a big family and they want all their nieces and nephews to come up. They're basically bought a property that's going to lure family members up there, but they could easily make money with in a heartbeat
if they choose to.
Yeah.
That's awesome.
So yeah, there's so many different ways to do it. I love like the A-frame house craze. Love the shipping containers, the really like Scandinavian looking houses, which I
are
think
like a huge,
you guys are going to lean that style.
Except I'm going to add more color to that, but
for sure. But it's all going to be like earthy and organic and really beautiful.
Yep.
So there's just a million different ways to do it. You could put stuff on Airbnb, VRBO.
I think something to chat a little bit about is how, at least for me, I told myself I could literally never do this. I told myself I would never be able to actually buy an investment property or like to own land. This was always going to be so out of reach. And the reality is it's actually not. And the process was so much easier than I could have ever anticipated. So I think that's fair to mention, because if you're sitting there thinking, well, I could never make that happen, or how would I do that? Like, how do we talk about that, and what steps can you take if you're sort of stuck there too?
I think one of the biggest things that stress people out is like where's the money going to come from? Like, how do you fund that? One of the good things so here's some caveats. So like, I'm not a loan professional. I was a loan professional back in a previous life.
We know a lot of great ones though. If you need one, hit us up.
But if you buy a rental property just like down the street, I'm using facetiously down the street, but if you buy a rental property like in the area where you live, and it's like a 3-bedroom, 2-bath that somebody's going to live in, you have to put considerably more down payment than if you're buying yourself a vacation home or second property, like like what you're going to use. I'm using air quotes for like your cabin is smaller down payment. But a lot of people will use down payment from that by having like a line of credit, or what we call a HELOC on their current home.
Home equity line of credit.
Because homeowners, since COVID or since like 2019, 2020, have amassed an incredible amount of equity in their current homes. So how can you use some of your equity in your current owner-occupied property to have money to buy another property that can also make you money? The line of credit is such a great solution. But you had firsthand experience of working with a local bank up in the area where you guys bought, and talk about how that experience.
So we, first of all, we reached out to our people here. We reached out to the loan officers that we work with, just to like have conversations, like what's our best route, because this is where we're looking at, this is what we're thinking of doing. And the consensus was you have to talk to a local bank. And so I was completely terrified. Like, what do you mean I have to talk to a local bank? I don't want to talk to a local bank. They're going to say, no, this process is going to be terrible. Now, I should also add here that I'm a small business owner, have been for years. I've been through the home buying process as a small business owner. It has been a freaking nightmare, or in the past. So to open all that up and then to go through this process with a local bank was completely terrifying. So We did though, because I was like, finally, okay, I want to do this. And I talked to Beth probably, I don't know, 150 times. And she was like, just call. And so I called, and it was the smoothest, greatest, easiest process. We had a 30-day close, like so easy. So shout out to the Marais State Bank, because they were fantastic. And I'm just like surprised myself, because I told myself this story that it was going to be so hard and that it was going to just be completely impossible. And it was a breeze. It was just a breeze.
How long did your closing take?
30 days.
No, your actual closing was 6 minutes or something?
It was like 6 minutes. It was so, it was a title. We were at title for like 6 minutes. It was so funny. I think Kaya didn't even get to finish. Like they had this sheet like for her to color on. She was like, what, maybe a third done? She was like, didn't even get to finish coloring, and we were done. That was it. So it was like a breeze. So that whole process, I told myself a story that wasn't true. Mm-hmm. And I don't think I'm alone in that. You think it's going to be so much harder.
Well, so what the big differences are is like if you buy an investment property, you know, like in a big city, you're going to typically go through a traditional bank. Mm-hmm. And so they have to follow all the Fannie Mae and Freddie Mac rules to make the loans saleable on the secondary market. However, if you use a local bank like up north in a small little town, they keep those loans in-house generally. And what that means is they're lending you their money. And they're probably going to send like the president of the bank out to your property to go look at it and make sure that it's legit. And they might be like checking in on you and being like, hi, I'm John Anderson from the president of the bank that does your mortgage. And you're like, oh, hi, come and look at what you're lending on. But then they have to maybe run it past like a board of directors. But they're a lot more flexible because they're not intending on selling that loan on the secondary market. So they're just borrowing their own money, and they're looking at you from a credit risk standpoint. And they're like, Kristi, yep. You have a track record of paying your bills. We're going to give you this money. And then Kristi's question is, well, what if I need a little bit more money? It shouldn't be a problem.
You know, that's exactly how the process was. So we were sitting on a beach in Mexico when we put our offer in on this property, because it popped up, and we were like, this is it. And so we're like, once again, asked Beth, am I crazy? She's like, people do it all the time.
Do it.
So we did it. So we found out while we were in Mexico that we got this property. And that's exactly what happened was... Yeah. It went to a board of directors to get like the final approval and all of that. But it was so smooth. And then we are in a construction loan. So we went right to a construction loan, which I know that typically that's a little bit longer of a process. Yep. They want you to go to...
Usually way longer of a process.
Yep. They want you to go, I think, land, correct, Beth? Land to then construction. You have like more closings.
Well, and you have to have all these millions of quotes and all this and that. You didn't... All of that was really flexible.
Smooth. It was smooth. So we went right to a construction loan so we can start building right away, which is super cool. And get money
to build
and we have all that figured out. So board of directors, they approve it, and then they're like, you're good to go. And I'm like, that's it? Well, like, what do you mean that's it?
Yeah,
like,
and your appraisal came back and like they're
fantastic.
Appraise it as if you have a structure on it. Also, and the numbers were like awesome.
That felt like, should we be nervous? We didn't think, we know the land it's a really good piece of land, but the appraisal process, that was also amazing.
Yes.
And they all work together. So dealing with the local bank and their local people that they deal with, for our experience, was great. And I would imagine in a lot of smaller towns or you know, lakes towns, it's going to be a similar experience.
I think so.
Yeah.
Yeah. So yeah, it's just, I think that it's not as scary as what people think it's going to be. And talking about money gets people crunchy. Ugh. And a lot of times people are like, ooh, especially people that are in the industry like us. Anytime I have to refinance or do any of that, I always get so much like stage fright and anxiety. I'm like, oh, I don't want my lender to judge me. And then it's never as bad as what I think it's going to be.
No. So I'm going to share a little more personal story of myself here with this. And I was so afraid to call and so afraid, like I talked to you how many times? Like I was so afraid to just pick up the phone and actually call the bank. I knew I needed to, and I knew we were ready. And I called her. And when I was on the phone with Marais, she's fantastic. And she was the vice president. She's the vice president of the bank up there. I said, I want to do this myself. I want to do this myself because it felt so empowering as a small business owner, like to be able to just say like, this is mine. Obviously I'm married. Obviously it's all of us. Right. But
one to buy, all to sell. You can't do shit without Ryan. Sorry about that.
I was like, am I nuts? So I just told her, I'm like, I want to do this myself. Can we make this happen? And she was like, yes. I'm like getting goosebumps right now. So like, as far as like going from, I will never be able to have this ever, 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 to then like relying on someone with a, Ryan is a very, like the W-2, it's coming, to then just going and taking this risk or like, following this dream and doing it myself. I mean, I feel
you just conquered the world. Yeah.
I know. I feel like I conquered the world, and she was so supportive and wonderful throughout it. And I just was like, when is like something bad going to happen kind of thing? And I was like, no, push that out. It's not going to. And it never did.
Right.
It just was a fantastic process.
Right.
And I feel even more empowered now as a woman in business.
Well, you should share where people can find your Instagram page about your new property.
Yeah. Okay. So go find me on social, Kristi Clinton _ and you'll be able to find it through there. Yeah.
So sure. Fun.
Yeah.
It's going to be a super fun journey to watch. I can't wait.
Oh, wait till you...
I'll have to bring a lot of bug spray when I come and visit.
Oh my God. Beth's going to come in the fall. She's going to come in the fall. It's a good time for Beth.
So there's the mosquitoes are less.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Yeah.
Yep.
But I guess the whole moral of this story in this conversation is that if owning a vacation property or a lake home or cabin or mountain home or whatever that looks like for you, do it. If you need someone to come cheerlead for you, call Kristi and I. We'll cheerlead all day long.
I'm ready. I'm so ready for it.
Because it's probably not going to be as scary as what you think once you take the first few steps.
Yeah, goodness, the story we tell ourselves, right?
Well, and building generational wealth. I mean, that's what we preach around here. Like, that's the whole point. Obviously, real estate is shelter and a roof over your head. But if you use it right, it can be an incredible tool to create wealth for your kids and grandkids and generations to come.
Yeah, find me on Instagram, because you can follow our a lot of crying probably, and a lot of joy, but a lot of crying and a lot of swearing from Ryan. I'm sure it's going to be super fun. It's going to be fantastic.
Well, hopefully you guys are all having a beautiful holiday today when you're listening to this episode, and we are always talking about the good, the bad, and the ugly, but this was like one of the best things ever.
Yeah.
Kristi checking a big thing off of her bucket list.
So I'm cheering you on. If you want to check something like this off too, there are so many options. So hit us up. We're happy to share whatever we can with you.
Awesome.
All right. So until next time, bus bench babes.
Keep your face off a bus bench.
And keep being the badass boss babe that you are. Okay, girls. Are you feeling as inspired as we are? We're over here cheering you on because you just finished another episode of the Girl, Get Your Face Off a Bus Bench podcast.
If you want more, head over to girlgetyourfaceoffabusbench.com for show notes and more episodes. And don't forget to subscribe and leave us a 5-star review. They mean the world to us, and they're what keep us going.
Girl, thanks for being here.